Oh, dear Rhode Island, there are a number of people from my town, or dear America. I was talking about Two Ride Highway as people, a number of people associated with a Detective Dylan, a Sean Dillon, a Kevin Dillon, and Anna Dillon involved with military, foreign, and domestic, also with the branches of government. It's one thing to get everyone on the same page. For example, America and nations that and how we have criminally foreign influence zoning laws that were involved with the fact, treatment, nature, torture, and slavery of our founders. The fact, treatment, nature, slavery of them. This is all. This is in relationship to also peaceful counters to what's overtly sick and crazy needed counters to through and as what was is involved with the organized crime method that not only forced all the rules with this, but to exploit the life progressions and the standing styles of liars in relationship to the identity of value's actual perfect progression and its actual relationship to and as the answer slash S of every question, the identity of it. This is the identity of value that yin yang is, which is a gaining nature of volume. That this identity does not leak. All exceptions are in demonstration of it too. Leak of Hadiths, for example. Floor, space, nature, transfer. So, what is nature? Nature's identity is identity of relationship to itself. The three natures of volume, bonded by what is the complete identity that each individual nature of volume, each person, as a complete identity, is simultaneously an unceasing semi nature, simultaneously an unceasing semi nature in relationship to the one that has us grouped and nature of volume as value with ours and has the incomplete species nature of volume with ours simultaneously value because one identity is again attached to all questions is the answer slash S. Now this is what the identity of algebra was revealed to teach. For example, to keep this obfuscated, they have ISIS in collusion with psychology that a whole bunch of nations like Russia and America confessed, recorded, and demonstrated. Justice Department, Trade Center, other nations' equivalents, and before their motivations to it when they were kids, though, and through their parents' roles with these houses on Two Rod Highway, on off of it. That saw I only know them, and they sought me out to make confessions, demonstrations about, which is relevant now too, because these are people involved with mayors, retired and standing, like a Gold family, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by a whole bunch of racketeering with people associated with child sex offenders, also with all the people, things tied to state police, Weathersfield police, on and off their state judicial branch offices. Now, these are evidence racketeering. This is where you're using everyone's value and each identity of the ground, each where each distance, each age of fact treatment nature is going to be aware of. They're hurting kids, and they're motivated to it not for the like things for slavery, overt slavery, which we're only allowed to speak about. We're not allowed to speak about the recorded forced slavery of the fact treatment nature of our founders, their identity thefts actually recorded. We're not allowed to speak about that. They're recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. They have collusion. They have this from they have each age of fact treatment nature maintains self-valuing this per a method using confessions from strangers. This is also exploiting the uniquely sickly distinct, tactically denatured relationship to nature, self-valued in suburbs and suburban slash urban, and then overt urban, and then all ranges of that, and all exceptions and demonstration of the same thing. Not only will we have to understand the racketeering uses of that, the identity of the ground's actual relationship to our quality of fact, treatment, nature, progression, its value, not just actively, inherently, simultaneously. We have sequence racketeering that they're using also for this method of organized crime that kept and keeps the whole identities of each nation defending their value as that. Because now they're retired, whatever like that. It's an imperfect world. We have former director of the FBI Robert Luskin, also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with CNN sources through CCSU, also intercities involved with criminal uses of parks, all the way in New Britain, in Newington, and in Wethersfield through time involved with vertical and horizontal database racketeering and uses of perception and uses of violence for sustained from formal where everyone's a victim, everyone's forced to speak through other people, and no one's following writing, and they're doing little tricks like that, and they're stacking the things into the databases, and they're pretending for other reasons than are true. Now there are a whole bunch of names that they have, this is what, because they when now they have people stuck. You having been using other people's names, pretending to comp things who are also who are involved with formal evidence reception, things put into databases. People pretending what's in databases is real when they're trying to figure out things at courts levels. This is involved with each branch of government individually grouped in together, involve racketeering, and then individually each group, each like the FBI is a group, is an individual group. Oh, now every individual in it, every group in it, and all together, their roles with sequence shifts with wire crime self-valued is related to this because there are uses of that. See the suits and ties, there are uses of the trade center recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with a whole bunch of CCSU people involved with criminal uses of parks, which is involved with vertical and horizontal. In other words, live progressions from a racketeering method recorded and confessed used with the databases of the campuses, a whole bunch of natures of child abuses, as what sustains a whole roles with a whole bunch of elderly abuses, a whole bunch of liars pretending their integrity where it has accounts as all victim predators. Forgiveness is important because religion is really about how there's no free speech. We have fake law. We have the identities of the ground next to these religious spots also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved. No, now see, they'll use my extended family member because they already did that with people involved leading up into the Trade Center attack and in it. Now this is former director of the FBI, and that he did this because everyone speaks to other people. That's what the worth of it. Everyone wants to keep that's private. They don't care about privacy. That's true. They care about privacy, but it's not true all the way. And where and how it's not true, that's their real motivations. See, we have people pretending things are debatable that aren't debatable by preventing mandated law because their evidence, their criminal uses from outside of sustained on off interbranch databases, racketeering, sticking categorically fake things, sequence shift fake things, whole groups numerically used this way because this is a whole bunch of nations maintaining this the outcome and has roles with it recorded through lifetimes, but it's with already exploited manifest relationships, for example, self-confessed and recorded with things that have nothing to do with the identity. Like in other words, there's a Jordan Brown. I barely know him. I never had a class with him. And there's a Hanson family on a Church Street. in Old Wethersfield. And there's a woman I had a English class with on the corner of that street in Main Street. And there's there are a whole bunch of people with the acting department also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with interbranch racketeering acts and methods of covering it up and actual motivations of it. Now, there are a whole bunch of people with Trinity College and with CCSU connections and UConn and all the campuses, and now that are involved with evidence is racketeering originally and still, which is about what using color is, like pretending not to realize that you with physical delusions. If you're pretending to be an identity of the law um, worthy of speaking, especially to kids, and are making opinions when someone says something. So these are people. This is a racketeering method that has already all that tied private to the branches of government and their databases and the databases of each age intercampuses kids before they even meet each other. Their names they're using racketeering tricks that everyone's missing, and because they're missing how they're used. They used before our founders were born. They already have everyone rolls with that in layers. They exploited it not there, but the live progressions from that. Now, a whole bunch of people recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with I might be someone pretending to be them because they have people pretending to be me online. But if it was it's also anyway. It was he demonstrated. I had no words with them when they were there on Griswold Street. Joe Aiello recorded, confessed, and demonstrated is involved with interbranch family members with all kinds of natures of child abuse, even sexual, even medical. People tied to them with their roles with forging names, switching names, pretending illusions onto Facebook. Now, because then Facebook is involved with New Britain Superior Court with for sustained abuses of kids on and off campuses. They're lying through kids because they have prosecutors, judges, even female judges through time involved with the prosecutors and lawyers too, forging names, switching names roles, mail crime roles, wire crime roles, preventing anything in writing and pretending they're law because we have the branches already, not just individually grouped and together criminally acting. Also, a Leahy family recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by a whole bunch of doctors that he forges their names. He faked conversations with me. His son did with the same name. They have other brothers. Their friends are also involved with identity thefts, wire crimes, mail crimes, criminal uses of identity of the ground with associated with other nations, like the corner of like all the corners, but like the corner of Town Line Drive, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with their roles with the investigators of the Trade Center attack, who already had roles because they had their kids of the family member into what they call the intelligence community. That's recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with racketeering, where like Mexico, Puerto Rico, they share training of these prison stewards. Like, oh, this guy's the title of this. I'm a sergeant. These people are roles with evidence racketeering, fake recorded things into databases, with their family members involved, maintain victim predators. And then they use passions and aggressions for sustained, involves insidiously sick, also with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, categorically, sequentially, telling the same finite, active, progressive, and needy to hide those lies through time for sustained and uses of them. Again, where and as and how these are criminal uses of the identity of the ground. I'll gather around. The difference between everyone getting on the same page that we have a pathology of infrastructure criminally worse than unsafe, semi-unsafe, and worse than that. and that to perpetually exploit. We need to get on the same page. Why and how? You have to understand the Weathersfield suburban. You know, this is just Weathersfield and Hartford too. For example, it's every intercity, any differentiation in landscape, in the actual logistical values. See now, the value you hear, oh, you know, like there's a guy named Tim Schmore on YouTube. Good guy, but these people, he'll say, "Oh, just bring value." There, he's telling you about to bring value, for example, and then you hear all the guys they're talking about that because when you learn about algorithms in school, the algorithm is going to need to know what is true always, what is not, and what the nature of the truth. And then see, but those algorithms are inside this that does that as logic's actual course, and actual needs for free speech. We haven't had since founding too, because we've had respected the criminal insidiousness nature, not only of the branches individually grouped in together, but not only all private tied to them. But this is juxtaposed with overt criminal enterprises really maintained, motivated through and as that to maintain self-valued value treatments, all time treatments, money treatments. You know what I'm saying? That are value treatments most critical in relationship to the value nature system that originally still has obligations to note how we have forsaken individually grouped and together, not by color, by logistical impositions in relationship to, again, to this sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly simultaneously, inter natures of cities. And this is, listen to me here, because George Washington had to come right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. Even with the French general's help, he had to leave overt slavery entrenched here. He had to leave not a detailed record. He didn't have free speech to leave a detailed record or even admit that he was concerned about how nations individually grouped and together were already here, but they were forced to lie about that identity individually grouped and together. They were forced to call England what the possession of here, when it was really just only England's might really came from, like America's might really came from what is native, that was ancient, that was taken away to the extent they could do it, where they invested everyone's self-valuing roles, needs, and natures, blaming the causes of it on other things other than themselves, with defenses of themselves, fact keeping nature wise. Now, and they invested that, therefore, perpetually lie progressions from all formal positions, sophistication only in relationship to what it is only capable of self-valuing, breaching racketeering method using human fact treatment nature furthering. Blame now the things others themselves. So we have a species nature of volume, not their voice. We have the identities of whole physical cultures used instead of their value more or less differentially in relationship to our quality of fact treatment nature. In other words, that voice, that nature of science is not left voice. Only theater science as criminal insidiousness is allowed voice. Now this is involved. This is not complicated. This is just we have people debating it offensively, criminally, and they're reliant upon things like war, like that, not by accident, for their justifications. In other words, they need to keep things restricted where they're incapable of having an honest conversation with people interpersonally, but formally, interbranch, because of their uses of, in other words, it's not just that we have to understand intercities, interstates, the racketeering roles and uses of this pathology of zoning laws and value treatment with the ground and with nature, our relationships to water and value treatments by that, not the environment, nature. What is nature? In relationship to that identity that is ours, the value of ours in this system that is reality, that we actually know is true always, not denying exceptions. See, and then we also have recorded, confessed, and demonstrated the science is criminally foreign influence delusions wrought, and that being that self-value roles for what recorded effectively maintains the whole identities of the FBI, of the CIA, with impressions in theater in relationship to what they just want to defend titles. Don't, and that's maintained in collusion. What keeps them the real value used to prevent our fact treatment nature discernment and right away of what really is keeping criminally foreign influence state scenarios. And it's not one nation, it's through a whole bunch of nations differentially. The same exact way it was supposed to work. Now it's everyone's self-valuing roles with an identity of negative value nature progression, reliant upon precedents and statutes criminally foreign influence, and to maintain our actual value nature system, abridged constitution, which is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, but they're not following mandated law individually grouped and together. So there are a whole bunch of people that, with CCSU through time, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, involved with racketeering with mayors retired and standing, right through people's lifetimes, putting fake things into databases and exploiting that in ways, those are categorically fake things. There were a whole bunch of people tied to a Leahy family and to a Casper family who are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, attach me and little kids through time to fake locations with a whole bunch of other people and to fake words. And if you do lie to people, in other words, when they approach you lying to you and rolls with it, then they pretend you're a liar and they don't even know you. You don't know their name. In other words, and you can't go around fighting with everyone. So, and no one wants to start talking about how girls are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with overt criminal enterprises to strangers, and involved with a whole bunch of shared sexual circle men at the same time, and then also make confessions. And I'm not going to get involved with things like that. And those aren't people I hung around with. And well, why were they telling you? How were you telling them? People sought you out to make confessions. This is a way they exploit the human fact, human nature, sickly, distinctly, and non-distinctly in suburbs and suburban urban, which is Hartford, which is also, part over urban. And the same people from intercities, like from Wethersfield, Newington, West Hartford, New Britain, all involved. See, the state judicial branch offices, on off it, houses, men and women, and a whole bunch. Like there's a whole bunch of people associated with an Olsen family, with an Oliveri family, and with Eric Jensen, who are involved, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, involved with Facebook racketeering with online policing. That is also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, involved with interbranch databases, racketeering, vertical and horizontal, and evidence is racketeering. These are people tied to racketeering roles with further with and uses of people involved with post-dated document that had been hand delivered, proven afterwards, and time stamped on time to the Ninth Circuit in Manhattan, right before the Trade Center. I mean, and the case came right before the part of a case /S came right before the Trade Center attack, and They showed post-dated documents from inside the court to the panel of judges, 3 judges, and that's involved with a whole bunch of things and cases through time and stuff like that. That a Leahy family, that this Casper family, a whole bunch of prosecutors, long-standing and new and retired and stuff like that, and newer were already involved with this, where they spread lies, fake conversations with people. They're involved with forging names and switching names so people can never have counters unless they're going to self-value roles with not legitimately criminally foreign influenced, like vetting and things like that, used for other natures of racketeering. Right, criminal uses of the identity ground, identity theft, racketeering, methods of crime in relationship to value treatments in cases already sick originally and still, in relationship to what is actually the value of people in the north end of Hartford, for example. Sickly hurt distinctly from the people from Park Street, also sickly hurt distinctly, to keep non distinctly everyone blaming other things other than themselves. The people associated with that are also a minority in Wethersfield, recorded sickly distinctly, effectively preventing free speech by interbranch collusion with identity theft, racketeering, mail crimes, wire crime roles, with collusion with a whole bunch of other nations maintaining their parents involved with the racketeering that houses on and off Two Rod Highway and Hangdog Lane have recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with Fox Connecticut News and with WFSB, with our side's fake integrity of a law. Now, there was also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated they're training people like, oh, this is the law. We have, it takes the time to learn because in other words, they have each age of fact treatment nature involved with a racketeering method that's /S bonded, where they have, in other words, we have real simple answers that will prevent the free speech. We have sequence racketeering. We already have the branches of government and their kids recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with still ongoing sustained crimes through the kids because they tied to a and they're using the kids of the people who work for these agents, because now these, not just these identities of branches, but these identities of the news agencies. Now they have kids. They say, oh, they want to talk about it. I saw some guy on YouTube. So now they start pretending the more they're against behavior, because these are people who are behavior predators, use with aggression for sustained, where it counts, with fact treatment nature, in relationship to sick games through the kids, also with sexual and medical and overt criminal enterprises with the same ones. Involve also racketeering with roles, acts, and methods and natures, like some guy named Poisian, Sergeant Poisian, whatever, and now he's with the state police reportedly. He's also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with state police and with forensics clicks, involved racketeering with houses in my area through time, as the people involved also racketeering with interstates, child sex offender trafficking, associated also with women who are associated with the FBI in New Haven, uses of their identity of the ground locations, their value treatments, what they say. Oh, so in other words, there are training of police officers associated with Wethersfield Police Department and reports of a shooting that in other words, and that are also involved with racketeering with people on and off the state judicial branch offices, with the Connecticut cases also further involved with criminal uses of the databases, as the ones also interstates in the Ninth Circuit Court right next to the Trade Center right before the attack, as people also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved racketeering uses of everyone speaking through other people, and of the perception of everyone from Wethersfield interstates, and what and from the ones with Hartford intercities, racketeering uses, recorded confessed. This is where fact-cheaping nature is valued, where evidence reception is being taught by who are already involved as breaching screens and tools, racketeering uses of identity of the ground, each age of fact treatment nature, gather round. Then, they're forcing, this is a child abuse, force sustained by the people that are only allowed to deal with mental issues with kids. When these are not mental issues, we have aggression that needs to be encountered. We have courts with female judges involved crimes with child sex offenders, with state police, with former director of the FBI, his lawyer. Now we have, this is also on Farmington Avenue, for example, the L Roots and Streets. Now these are also their roles with narratives with Narcan in collusion with all these crazy drugs now they're putting out, like where you could just touch them. These are roles with a breaching organized crime racketeering method that originally kept and keeps effectively the identities of the branches criminally foreign influenced and pretending other. Like they are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involve racketeering acts with other nations associated with Russians and women involved with crimes with their patients and criminals, and with them, and also with their family members, their patients and criminals, like ones with fire departments and stuff like that. And in other words, they also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated through time they already did. Like, for example, they use crime methods like when they need to hide live progressions, they're involved with gun crimes and knife crimes, bug spray crimes, and everyone's speaking through other people. Like with my new and past neighbors, also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated racketeering roles with my name and with this Dillon family, with roles with child sex offenders cliques, real and or made up. Also involved with Wethersfield police and a whole bunch of and family members of theirs involved with racketeering acts with evidences leading up to and with identity thefts and we're pretending other all exceptions and with, like, for example, with the Joshua Julian. And I had no idea. I never had a conversation on the phone or anything. I never had anything to do with this Mike Roberts. When he pulled up with a motorcycle one time, he was like, I was like, oh, and there was like two little things. So I stood in the back. There are proofs that they took a picture of that for criminal reasons. There are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with other parks and towns and intercities involved a racketeering method with Justice Department, Washington, D.C., Pentagon, Trade Center, again, further involved with Wethersfield. But where I'm not getting it, this is where I need a response. Since I was a kid, I could not get a response in writing. This is forcing everyone to speak through other people. These are people further on a web school, next to a web school with foreign and domestic military already criminally roles with the fake, homeland, not for because they're undercover KKK and Confederate flag themed, and they're also, in other words, that's also with in collusion with people associated with Sammy Vega. Now they have all kinds of real motivations. Nature needs to lie. I'm not trying to debate the debatable. They're recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with the racketeering roles and uses of Facebook and of behavior in relationship to their sequence shifts and forced sexual, medical, and judicial and executive criminal uses, even of their locations, especially regarding their locations in sequence first, because their methods being used here. We have a lot of bad things and people people that never had never had one person teach them right, because they never had anything but criminally foreign influenced states and areas, all positions of sophistication, criminally foreign influence, breaching screens, tools, and weapons, and worse. All victims of a victim predator. This is what forgiveness is about. This is what yin yang is about. This will not leak. What fills its volume pure. Alpha and Omega. can't separate yin and yang. So you could, whatever you could separate is alpha. And so its value, though, is greater than itself, positive or negative, in relationship to its value of itself. So the progressive nature of volume is Adam and Eve. Eve is alone. The female is alone. And so the inherent nature of volume is Romulus and Remus. The male is alone. And the alpha value is the value of that part of the male or the female that we have control over, which is the relationship to the identity of positive actually, inseparable from our from that our complete identity, whereas how it is simultaneously an unceasing semi-nature relationship to and as the value of what is grouped, ages, areas, sexes, and to what is species, nature, or volume simultaneously. That's not just for the unity of it. It's to see the unity of it is further positive or negative now in relationship to what is sequence true, finite true, active true, progressive true simultaneously, and care at where science where prayer is the value of the science of logic, not in relationship to what is simultaneous here. In other words, contemplation at that level. And so, well, we have science, not left free speech. We have the first part of the Quran. We have the first part of the Old Testament, distinctly and not distinctly, not left free speech, in relationship to their roles, in relationship to this organized, their recorded, demonstrated awareness of this racketeering method exploiting how the identity of humanity's nature or volume is now individually grouped and together self-valuing the identity they are, how they are now individually grouped and together, tactical ulterior from how we are actually bonded, individually grouped together. In other words, and they're calling that science. It's all right to say that's science, but when you're using that to everyone because everyone says that's science to make opinions about people who are trying to show exceptions to that where it's not science. Science uses what is true always, not denying exceptions, not denying exception nature. Nature, not in relationship to the identity of some platform online, on the ground, which is that's all this is now. An identity of breaching screen, each modern nation. This is why Mao Zedong don't want us anyone writing about him. That's what we have. We have sophistication. Fake. CT must break. So we have the branches won't give themselves up, and no one will follow mandated law. And then and so they just self-value precedence, in collusion with everyone that comes before their courts, and the innocence that comes before their courts that they also put into databases. They're what they need to pretend to find people because they already used that. So this is what I'm trying to say about Wethersfield, Connecticut, and Hartford, Connecticut, are connected to what Joseph Mengele was connected to, which is a guy who overtly they left in the record with crazy stuff, with medical tortures and worse of Jewish people. Now this is to maintain self-value rightly, but not rightly, where this value nature, the counters to that fact treatment nature wise. And this was simultaneously to do the same thing against every nation, same thing against Germany. When the slavery was still in the North when they had the Civil War, that our founders didn't have free speech, that's still forced glorified. And they have recorded, confessed, and demonstrated how they have physical delusions in their sciences. They have their awareness how everyone else does, and everyone will think, oh, the things are money, that's that. Oh, don't. So I need a response because they forged names, switched names, interbranched. There are a whole bunch of people with East Hartford also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated criminal uses of identity ground locations, and interbranch family members, therefore, originally still recorded. You can't be there. I'm not saying they're not victims, but you're a victim predator if you think that American history was told proper or is hard to tell. You see, they're obfuscate. If you think that the sciences, it's not essential every moment to be, if you're teaching a class, any class properly, to be aware of how the sciences share this identity that yin yang is about. See how water, more things come into it from nowhere. Earth, the fruits and gifts of evolution, they come into it, but they go away from it, leave the 5Ds. But through our systems, our systems are now only allowed fact keeping nature respect when they're criminally foreign influenced. Specifically, so they can keep criminal foreign influence and the words like foreign as triggers in the minds of people that are for shared grouped already since before our founders not to talk about it. Shared policing on and off CCSU. A whole bunch of neighbors of people, a whole bunch of people on the. So anyway, we have the news recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with a racketeering method where with both parties too here. We have to ferret out the guys like, in other words, there's also, in other words, so we have a whole bunch of state police that already acted criminally in the past before I was even alive or when I was young. Weathersfield police, judges, and they have a crime method role uses of CCSU, of Trinity College, of the sensibilities of people, of the fact treatment nature styles forced by what is positive or negative to our fact treatment nature quality as this identity's identity of relationship to itself. The same way what is positive or negative to our a boxer's fighting style is to his or her identity through the course of sustaining fights. This way, this way, this way is pure. It's native too. Do not have to be Native Americans to understand that and how they are exploited by this. But see, we have to free speech and allow someone with experience, not just experience of that, of and as that. You know, this sees through walls. Boxing. It tells us things. Why do you think we need walls? This system wants us to know what we needed to know to make it, to keep that value increasing, because it only increases its nature of volume, the forever nature we're making more of. Like a little bit more life, positive or negative, coming into things. The nature of volume of water, the nature of volume of earth, the fruits and gifts of evolution. See, now identity nature is that. A little bit more, a little plurality is that. A little bit more of the same nature or volume. And see that those differences are value to see this. We're supposed to understand that we have since semi-ancient times, since before modern religions, we have a tactically denatured relationship to nature, identity of the ground. They made that self-valued roles with value nature systems. Therefore, an identity, the real value nature system has an inseparable conversation with us that is inseparable from the identity of the ground's value. It's an identity of relationship it has to itself since before matter, while being the value of matter, and as the increasing value of that. This is value as an identity of relationship to identity. See, now we have online platforms and anomaly exploited with them in relationship to the policing of online, even like the departments, the types of sciences individually grouped and together maintain criminally foreign influence. Vaccine, it tells us.